Captain Taman Park stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the endless stars. The Iron Phoenix was a good ship, not the biggest or newest in the human fleet, but reliable. She had carried them safely through 3 years of patrol duty, on the edge of human space. "Captain, we're getting something strange on the communications array," said Hanul Choi from her station. The young woman had been their communications officer for 2 years now. She was good at her job, speaking more languages than anyone else on the ship. Taemin walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" "It's a signal, but not from any human ship. The pattern is completely different. And, sir, it's very weak. Whatever sent this is far away." Engineer Woo-Jin Lee looked up from his console. "How far are we talking?" Hanul checked her readings again. "At least 200 light years, maybe more. I can barely make it out." Navigator So Young Kim turned in her chair. She had been plotting their course for the next system. 200 light years? That's way beyond our territory. We've never been that far from Earth. Taemin felt a chill run down his spine. In all his years as a captain, they had never received signals from that distance. "Can you clean it up? Make it clearer?" "I can try, sir." Hanul's fingers moved quickly over her controls. The speakers crackled with static. Then slowly, a voice came through. It was not human. The words were strange, musical, but filled with fear. Even though they could not understand the language, the emotion was clear. Someone was in terrible trouble. "Run it through the translation computer," Taemin ordered. The computer worked for several minutes. Finally, words appeared on the screen, in basic English. "Help us, please. Anyone who can hear this. We are dying. The Korthak have come. Our world burns. We have heard stories of the warriors from the Deathworld Terra. If you exist, if you can hear this, please help us. We are the Velathi of Velathos Prime. We do not have much time." The bridge fell silent. Woo-Jin was the first to speak. "Deathworld Terra? They mean Earth?" So Young nodded slowly. "That's what some alien species call our planet. They think Earth is too dangerous for most life forms. Because of our weather, our animals, our diseases," Hanul added. "To them, we're from a world that kills everything." Taemin read the message again. The Velathi were asking for help from humans specifically. They had heard about Earth's warriors, somehow. But who were the Korthak? "Hanul, see if you can get more of the signal. There might be additional information." She worked for another hour, pulling more data from the weak transmission. Slowly, a terrible picture formed. The Korthak were conquerors. They traveled from world to world, taking everything they wanted. They did not just defeat their enemies. They destroyed them completely. The Velathi message told of burning cities, of people running and hiding, of ships falling from the sky. The Korthak had arrived 3 days ago. The Velathi military was gone. Their government was dead. Only scattered groups of survivors remained, and they were being hunted. "Why are they calling us?" Woo-Jin asked. "How do they even know about humans?" So Young pulled up star charts on her screen. "Look at this. Velathos Prime is in the direction the Korthak are moving. If they take that world, they'll keep expanding. Eventually, they'll reach human space." Taemin studied the charts. So Young was right. The Korthak expansion was heading toward Earth and the human colonies. If they conquered the Velathi, humans would probably be next. "Sir," Hanul said quietly, "there's more to the message. The Velothi say they've been studying human history through old radio and television signals that reached their space. They've seen our wars, our movies, our documentaries about military actions. They think we're the only species that might be able to stop the Korthak. Because we're from a death world, Wu Jin said. They think that makes us better fighters. Taemin had heard this before. Other alien species they had met spoke about. Humans with a mixture of fear and respect. Earth was considered one of the most dangerous planets in known space. The weather alone could kill most alien species. The animals were deadly. The diseases were terrible. Yet humans had not only survived, they had thrived. Captain, So Young said, we need to make a decision. Do we report this to Earth Command? Taemin knew what she meant. If they sent this message to Earth, it would cause chaos. The human government would have to decide whether to help an alien species they had never met against an enemy they knew nothing about, in a war that was happening hundreds of light years away. But the alternative was doing nothing, letting the Velothi die, waiting for the Korthak to eventually reach human space. Ha Newell, can you send a response to the Velothi? I think so, sir, but it will take days to reach them if our signal is strong enough. Send this message. Velothi of Velathos Prime, this is Captain Taemin Park of the human ship Iron Phoenix. We have received your distress call. We are forwarding your message to our government on Earth. Hold on. Help may be coming. Hanul. Typed the message and sent it into space. Taemin hoped it would reach the Velothi in time to give them some hope. Wu Jin prepare the ship for immediate departure to Earth. So Young plot the fastest course home. Hanul, prepare a complete report of everything we've received. As his crew worked, Taemin stood looking at the stars again. Somewhere out there, an entire species was dying. They had called Earth for help, believing that humans, the warriors from the death world, might be able to save them. In a few hours, Earth Command would receive their report. Soon after that, the most important decision in human history would have to be made. Would humanity travel farther than they had ever gone before to fight in a war that was not their own? Taemin had a feeling he knew what the answer would be. Humans had never been good at ignoring cries for help. Fleet Admiral Dong-hyun Kang was drinking his morning coffee when the emergency message arrived. He had been running the Earth Defense Fleet for 15 years, and he thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. The communication from Captain Taemin Park changed everything. An alien species was calling for help from Earth. They were being destroyed by something called the Korthak, and they specifically wanted help from humans because they thought Earth was a death world. Dong-hyun called an emergency meeting. Within 2 hours, the most important people in the human government were sitting around a table in the Pentagon. Chancellor Mi-ra Song looked tired. She had been dealing with colony disputes all week and was not prepared for this. Let me understand this correctly, she said, reading the report again. An alien species we've never met is asking us to travel 200 light-years to fight another alien species we've never heard of. That's correct, Chancellor, Dong-hyun replied. The Velothi are under attack by the Korthak. According to their message, they have maybe days left before their entire civilization is wiped out. Chief military strategist Jae-wook Shin was studying star charts on his tablet. The location of Velathos Prime is interesting. If the Korthak are expanding in this direction, they're heading toward human space. This might not be someone else's war for long. Dr. Yoon Ji-yoon, the government's top expert on alien life, raised her hand. I've been analyzing the Velothi transmissions. Their language patterns suggest they're a peaceful species. Their technology seems focused on art, music, and science rather than warfare. They're probably not equipped to fight an aggressive enemy. What do we know about the Korthak? Chancellor Mira asked. Very little, Jaywuk admitted. But based on what the Velothi are saying, they're conquerors. They don't just take territory, they eliminate entire populations. No survivors, no prisoners. Defense Minister Kyung-Soo Park spoke up. We need to consider the risks. Sending our fleet 200 light-years from Earth would leave our colonies vulnerable. What if this is a trap? A trap? Dr. Yunji looked surprised. The Velothi transmissions show genuine fear. I don't think they're lying about being under attack. Donghyun pulled up a holographic display of human space. We have 12 major fleets spread across our territory. If we sent one fleet to help, the Velothi, we could still defend our colonies. One fleet against an enemy that destroyed the Velothi military. Chancellor Mira shook her head. That doesn't sound like enough. Jaywuk had been calculating numbers on his tablet. Actually, Chancellor, I think we should send more than one fleet. I think we should send everything we have. The room fell silent. Dong-hyun stared at his chief strategist. Everything? You want to send the entire Earth Defense Fleet? Think about it, Jaywuk said, standing up and pointing at the star charts. The Korthak have just conquered an entire star system. They have hundreds, maybe thousands of ships. If we only send a small force, we'll lose. But if we send everything, we might actually win. Or we might lose everything, Defense Minister Kyung-Soo said. If our entire fleet is destroyed, Earth would be defenseless. If the Korthak win at Velathos Prime, they'll eventually reach Earth anyway, Jaywuk replied. Better to fight them now, when we have allies, than wait for them to come to us when we're alone. Chancellor Mira looked around the room. Dr. Yoon, in your professional opinion, are the Velothi worth saving? Dr. Yunji did not hesitate. Yes. From their transmissions, they seem to be exactly the kind of species we should want as neighbors. Peaceful, intelligent, creative. If we can save them, we should. Admiral Kang, can our fleet actually make the journey to Velathos Prime? Dong-hyun had been thinking about this since reading the report. It would be the longest military deployment in human history. 30 days each way through uncharted space. We'd need to bring everything: fuel, food, ammunition, repair supplies. But yes, it's possible. What are our chances of winning? Unknown. We've never fought the Korthak. We don't know their capabilities, their numbers, or their tactics. But we do have advantages. Human ships are built for warfare. Our crews are trained for combat. And if the other species in the galaxy are right about Earth being a death world, maybe that gives us an edge. Chancellor Mira stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the sprawling city of New Geneva, rebuilt after the Third Corporate War. Humanity had survived many conflicts, but they had never fought for another species before. There's something else to consider, she said finally. If we do this, if we travel across the galaxy to help the Velothi, it will change how other species see us. We won't just be the warriors from the death world anymore. We'll be the species that helps others. Or the species that died trying, Defense Minister Kyung-Soo muttered. Dr. Yunji leaned forward. Chancellor, I've been studying alien communications for 20 years. The way the Velothi talked about us in their message, they have hope that humans might help them. When was the last time anyone in the galaxy looked to Earth with hope, instead of fear? Dong-hyun thought about his own career. He had fought in the Centauri Rebellion, the Mars Independence War, and the corporate conflicts. All of those had been human fighting human. The idea of fighting for someone else, for an alien species, was strange but somehow appealing. If we do this, he said slowly, we need to do it right. Full mobilization. Every ship, every Marine, every pilot. We call it Operation Thunderstrike. Jae-wook nodded. I've already started planning deployment schedules. We could have the fleet ready to depart in 5 days. 5 days? Chancellor Mira turned from the window. That fast? The Velothi don't have time for a long preparation period. Every day we wait, more of them die. Chancellor Mira looked around the room one more time. These people were asking her to authorize the biggest military operation in human history, to save aliens they had never met, against enemies they knew nothing about. But she thought about Dr. Yunji's words. When had anyone looked to Earth with hope instead of fear? Very well, she said. Operation Thunderstrike is authorized. Admiral Kang, you have 5 days to prepare the entire fleet for departure. Dr. Yoon, I want you to come with us. If we're going to make first contact with the Velothi, we need our best xenobiologist there. Chancellor, Defense Minister Kyung-soo said, are you sure about this? Mira Song had made many difficult decisions as Chancellor, but this felt different. This felt right. Minister, humanity has spent centuries proving we can survive anything our universe throws at us. Maybe it's time we proved we can help others. Survive, too. As the meeting ended and people began making preparations, Dong-hyun felt something he had not experienced in years. Excitement. In 5 days, the human fleet would depart for the edge of known space. They would either save an entire alien civilization or die trying. Either way, the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. The human fleet was the largest military force ever assembled. 500 warships stretched across space like a metal constellation. At the center flew the indomitable Admiral Dong-hyun Kang's flagship. The massive ship was 15 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Captain Byung-ho Nam stood on the bridge of his assault carrier, Storm's Edge. At 28, he was the youngest fleet captain in human history. His ship carried 200 fighter craft and 3,000 Marines. Like everyone else in the fleet, he had volunteered for this mission. Day 15 of our journey to Velathos Prime, he said into his personal log. The crew is holding up. Well, but everyone knows we're traveling farther from Earth than any human has gone before. No one talks about it, but we're all thinking the same thing. We might not make it home. Colonel Young-hee Seo was training her death commandos in the ship's combat deck. These were the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. Each one could fight for days without rest, survive in any environment, and complete missions that regular troops could not even attempt. Remember, she told her soldiers, we don't know what the Korthak look like, how they fight, or what weapons they use. We'll need to adapt quickly when we reach Velathos Prime. Stay flexible, stay alive, and complete the mission. Dr. Sung-min Bae, the fleet's chief psychologist, was worried about morale. 30 days in space was a long time, especially when everyone knew they were flying toward a battle that might be impossible to win. The crews are handling the stress well, he reported to Admiral Dong-hyun during their daily briefing. But I'm seeing signs of anxiety in some of the younger soldiers. They're afraid of fighting aliens they've never seen before. That's normal, the Admiral replied. I'd be worried if they weren't nervous. Fear keeps soldiers alive. Intelligence Officer Ji-hai had been working around the clock trying to intercept Korthak communications. On day 18, she finally succeeded. Admiral, you need to see this, she said, bursting into the command center with a tablet in her hands. The intercepted Korthak messages were horrifying. They did not just conquer planets, they destroyed everything. Cities were burned to the ground. Populations were eliminated completely. Any useful technology was taken, and the rest was obliterated. They've done this before, Jihi explained. The records show 17 different species completely wiped out. The Korthak don't take prisoners. They don't make peace treaties. They just destroy everything and move on to the next target. Admiral Dong-hyun felt sick reading the reports. How many Korthak ships are we talking about? At least 2,000, sir. Maybe more. They travel in massive fleets and overwhelm their enemies with pure numbers. Captain Tae-min Park, now serving as a scout commander, joined the briefing. His ship, Iron Phoenix, was flying ahead of the main fleet, gathering intelligence. Sir, we're starting to pick up long-range sensor readings from the Velathos system. The Korthak fleet is huge. We're going to be outnumbered at least 4-1. The command center fell silent. Everyone had known this would be difficult, but 4-1 odds were worse than anyone had expected. What about the Velathi? Dr. Sung-min asked. Are any of their ships still fighting? Tae-min checked his reports. We're picking up some activity on the planet's surface, but most of their orbital defenses are gone. If there are Velathi ships still operating, there aren't many. Admiral Dong-hyun looked at the tactical displays showing the approaching battle. 500 human ships against 2,000 Korthak vessels. The smart thing to do would be to turn around and go home, but that was not what humans did. Send a message to all ship captains, he ordered. Conference call in 1 hour. We need to discuss battle plans. The meeting included every captain in the fleet. Their faces filled dozens of screens around the admiral's briefing room. These were experienced warriors who had fought in many battles, but none of them had ever faced odds like this. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Dong-hyun began, our intelligence indicates we're flying into a battle we cannot win through conventional tactics. The Korthak outnumber us 4-1. Their ships are larger than ours. They have more firepower. Captain Byung-ho spoke first. Sir, with respect, if this is hopeless, why are we continuing? Because hopeless and impossible are not the same thing, the Admiral replied. The Korthak have been winning by overwhelming their enemies with superior numbers. They've never fought humans before. They don't know what we're capable of. Colonel Young-hee joined the discussion from her ship's communications room. What advantages do we have? Speed, flexibility, and desperation, Admiral Dong-hyun said. Korthak tactics seem to rely on brute force. They attack head-on and crush everything in their path. We're going to do something they won't expect, Chief. Strategist Jae-wook Shin, participating from Earth via long-range communication, presented the battle plan. It was complex, dangerous, and required perfect timing. We're going to split the fleet into 3 groups, he explained. Group 1 will attack the Korthak fleet directly, drawing their attention. Group 2 will slip around behind them and attack their command ships. Group 3 will focus on reaching the planet and evacuating as many Velathi as possible. That's a lot of moving parts, Captain Tae-min observed. If any part of the plan fails, we'll be destroyed. If we attack conventionally, we'll definitely be destroyed, Admiral Dong-hyun replied. This way, we at least have a chance. As the meeting ended and captains returned to preparing their ships, Dr. Sung-min noticed something interesting. Despite the impossible odds, morale was actually improving. The crews were scared, but they were also determined. It's strange, he told Admiral Dong-hyun privately. Knowing how difficult this will be seems to have made everyone more focused. They're not thinking about going home anymore. They're thinking about the mission. On day 27, they began receiving new transmissions from Velathos Prime. The Velathi were still fighting. Small groups of survivors were hiding in underground cities, mountain caves, and abandoned buildings. They were waiting for help. That might never come. Captain Byung-ho translated one of the messages for his crew. "We heard your ships might be coming. We are still here. We are still hoping. Please hurry." On day 30, the human fleet reached the edge of the Valathos system. Long-range sensors confirmed their worst fears. The Korthak fleet was massive, over 2,000 ships surrounding the planet like hungry predators. Admiral Dong-hyun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at the tactical display. His 500 ships seemed tiny compared to the enemy force waiting for them. "All ships, this is Admiral Kang," he announced over the fleet communication system. "In a few hours, we're going to do something that has never been done before. We're going to show the galaxy that humans don't just fight for survival. We fight for what's right." He paused, thinking about Earth, about the Valathi, about the choice they had made to travel across the galaxy for strangers. "Today we show the universe what Deathworlders can do when they decide to protect others. All ships, prepare for battle. Let's go save a civilization." The Battle of Valathos Prime began at 800 hours ship time. Admiral Dong-hyun Kang watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as his fleet moved into position. The Korthak ships were massive, dark vessels that looked like they were built for destruction. Each one was twice the size of a human cruiser. "First wave, begin your attack run," the admiral ordered. Captain Byung-ho Nam led the initial assault with Storm's Edge and 60 other ships. Their job was to get the Korthak fleet's attention and draw them away from the planet. As they approached, the enemy ships turned to face them like a pack of wolves spotting prey. "Here they come," Byung-ho said to his crew. "Remember, we don't need to win this part of the fight. We just need to keep them busy." The first exchange of fire lit up space with energy beams and missile trails. Human ships were smaller and faster, darting between the larger Korthak vessels like angry insects, but the enemy had overwhelming firepower. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported his damage control officer. "We're losing atmosphere." "Seal it. Off and keep fighting," Byung-ho replied, watching as 3 human destroyers exploded under Korthak fire. The plan was working. The enemy fleet was focusing on his ships, but the cost was terrible. While the main battle raged above, Colonel Young-hee Seo was leading her death commandos toward the planet's surface. Their mission was to find Valathi survivors and get them to safety. Her assault ships slipped through the battle, using the chaos as cover. "Landing zone is hot," her pilot reported as they entered the atmosphere. "Korthak troops are everywhere, down there." "That's why they sent us," Young-hee replied, checking her weapon. "All units, remember your training. We're not here to fight a war on the ground. We're here to save lives." The capital city of Valathos Prime was a burning ruin. Buildings that had once been beautiful works of art were now smoking rubble. Korthak. Soldiers moved through the streets, destroying everything they found. Young-hee's first target was a group of Valathi hiding in an underground shelter. The aliens were tall, thin creatures with large eyes and delicate features. They looked like they had never hurt anyone in their lives. "We're here to help," she told them in basic galactic standard. "Human soldiers, we're getting you out of here." The Valathi leader, an elderly female named Thexara, stared at the human soldiers in amazement. "You came. You actually came. We thought the message might not reach you." "We got your message," Young-hee said, helping the old alien to her feet. "Now, we need to move. My ships can take you to safety, but we have to go now." As they moved through the ruined city, Young-hee's soldiers fought running battles with Korthak troops. The enemy soldiers were brutal fighters, but they had never faced humans before. They were not prepared for the speed and aggression of Earth's warriors. Sergeant Chang Woo Park took point, clearing buildings with his squad. The Korthak were larger than humans, with thick armor and powerful weapons, but they moved slowly and relied on overwhelming force rather than tactics. "They fight like they expect their enemies to run away," he reported over the radio. "They don't know what to do when someone fights back." Above the planet, the space battle was reaching its climax. Admiral Dong Hyun had committed his reserve ships to the fight, and the Korthak fleet was taking heavy damage, but human losses were mounting quickly. "Sir, we've lost the Marathon and the Thunderbolt," reported his tactical officer. "Total losses are now at 30%. Pilot Hyo-jin An was flying her fighter through the massive battle, targeting Korthak command ships. Her squadron had started with 24 fighters. Now only 8 remained. "Phoenix leader to all remaining units," she called over the radio. "I'm seeing a gap in their defensive line. If we can punch through, we can hit their flagship." Her wingman, Lieutenant Da-un Lim, checked her fuel readings. "Hyo-jin, we don't have enough fuel for the return trip if we go that deep." "Then we better make it count," Hyo-jin replied, pushing her fighter to maximum speed. The run toward the Korthak flagship was a nightmare of defensive fire. 2 more fighters exploded before they reached their target. Hyo-jin armed her most powerful missile and aimed for the enemy ship's command section. "This is for the Valathi," she whispered, and fired. The missile struck the Korthak flagship directly in its command center. The massive ship began to drift, its main systems failing, but Hyo-jin's fighter was too damaged to escape. As her ship broke apart around her, she managed one last radio transmission. "Target destroyed. Good luck, everyone." The loss of their flagship sent shockwaves through the Korthak fleet, but they still had hundreds of ships left. Admiral Dong Hyun knew his forces could not hold out much longer. That was when the Valathi surprised everyone. "Sir, we're getting new contacts on sensors," his tactical officer reported. "Ships coming up from the planet." Thexara, the Valathi elder that Colonel Young-hee had rescued, was now on board the human command ship. She had been secretly coordinating with Valathi survivors across the planet. "We are not warriors like you," she told Admiral Dong Hyun in broken human language. "But we still have some ships hidden. We will help fight." The Valathi vessels were not built for war. They were science ships, cargo haulers, and passenger transports. But their crews were desperate, and they had spent days preparing for this moment. "Valathi ships, this is Admiral Kang. Welcome to the battle. Target the Korthak rearguard and hit them with everything you have." The arrival of the Valathi ships created chaos in the Korthak formation. The enemy had not expected the planet's inhabitants to fight back. Their attention was divided between the human fleet in front of them and the Valathi ships attacking from behind. Captain Taemin Park, still commanding his scout ship Iron Phoenix, saw an opportunity. The Korthak command structure was breaking down. Individual ships were acting on their own instead of following coordinated orders. "Admiral, request permission to take Iron Phoenix on a suicide run against their main battle cruiser." "Denied, Captain. We need every ship we have." "Sir, with respect, we're losing this fight. But if I can take out their largest ship, it might break their morale." Engineer Woo-jin Lee volunteered to jury-rig the Iron Phoenix into a guided missile. "I can. Overload our reactor and set the ship to ram their cruiser. The explosion should be enough to destroy both ships." Admiral Dong Hyun hated the idea, but he knew Taemin was right. They were losing, and desperate measures were their only hope. Permission granted. "Good luck, Iron Phoenix." Taman and his crew aimed their ship at the largest Korthak vessel and pushed their engines to maximum. As they accelerated toward the enemy, Wu Jin began the reactor overload sequence. "It's been an honor serving with you," Taman told his crew over the intercom. "Same here, Captain," So Young replied from the navigation station. "Let's make this count." The Iron Phoenix struck the Korthak battlecruiser at full speed. The explosion was visible across the entire star system, a brilliant flash that briefly outshone the local sun. The destruction of their largest ship finally broke the Korthak fleet's will to fight. The surviving enemy vessels began to retreat, abandoning the planet they had spent weeks conquering. Admiral Dong Hyun watched them go with mixed feelings. They had won, but the cost had been enormous. More than half the human fleet was gone. Thousands of soldiers and crew members would never see Earth again, but they had saved the Velothi. The gentle alien species would survive to rebuild their civilization. "All ships, cease fire," he ordered. "Begin search and rescue operations. Let's bring our people home." 3 months after the Battle of Velithos Prime, the galaxy was a different place. News of humanity's victory had spread to every corner of known space, carried by traders, diplomats, and refugees who had witnessed the impossible. Admiral Tai Min. Park stood on the bridge of his new flagship, Velithos Defender. He had been promoted after the battle, one of the few senior officers to survive the massive space fight. The ship was a gift from the Velothi, built using both human and alien technology. "Admiral, we're receiving another distress call," reported Communications Officer Kyung Hwan Ju. The young man had replaced Ha Nul Choi, who had died when her ship was destroyed during the battle. Tai Min sighed. This was the 15th distress call they had received in the past month. Word had spread throughout the galaxy. If you were in trouble, call the Deathworlders from Terra. "What's the situation this time?" "The Zephyrian Republic, sir. They're under attack by Korthak remnant forces. The survivors from Velithos Prime have regrouped and are seeking revenge." On Earth, Chancellor Mira Song was dealing with the political aftermath of Operation Thunderstrike. The successful mission had made her popular with the human public, but it had also created new problems. 17 different alien species have requested military alliances, reported Foreign Minister Su Jin Kang, Admiral Dong Hyun's daughter, who had taken over fleet operations after her father's death in the battle. The Centaurian Trade Federation wants to establish formal diplomatic relations. Even the hegemony of swords is interested in talking to us. "And the Galactic Council?" Mira asked. "They've extended a formal invitation for Earth to join as a protector species. It's the first time they've offered membership to anyone in over a century." Dr. Yoon Ji-yoon, now director of the Galactic Species Preservation Institute, was working with Velothi scientists to study the long-term effects of the Korthak invasion. The gentle aliens had lost 60% of their population, but they were slowly rebuilding. "The Velothi have adapted remarkably well," she reported during a video conference with Earth. "They're incorporating human military training into their education system. Not to become warriors, but to be prepared if something like this happens again." Mordathi, the new Velothi leader, had become Earth's first alien ambassador. The tall, graceful creature was learning human languages and customs while helping to coordinate joint defense projects. "Your species has given us something we never had before," he told Dr. Yoon-ji during one of their meetings. "Hope. Before the humans came, we thought all strong species were destroyers. You showed us that strength can be used to protect the weak." Colonel Young-hee Seo was training the first joint human-alien special forces unit. Her death commandos were working with Velothi scouts, Centaurian engineers, and volunteers from a dozen other species. The aliens learn quickly, she reported, to Admiral Taman. Their different physiologies actually give us advantages. Velothi have better hearing than humans. Centaurians can see in spectrums we can't. Together we're more effective than any single species fighting alone. But not everyone in the galaxy was happy about humanity's new role. In the dark regions of space, the remaining Korthak forces were regrouping under a new leader called War Prince, Krovak. Unlike his predecessors, this one was smart enough to study human tactics. The Deathworlders fight differently than other species, he told his commanders during a strategy meeting. They do not surrender when outnumbered. They do not retreat when wounded. They sacrifice themselves for strangers. This makes them dangerous but also predictable. Intelligence Officer G. High. O was monitoring Korthak communications from her new position on Earth. The surviving enemy forces were developing new weapons specifically designed to fight humans. They're studying our psychology, she reported, to Chancellor Mira. They know we'll respond to distress calls, so they're planning to use that against us. Set up fake emergencies to draw our fleets into traps. The test came sooner than expected. The Zephyrian distress call that Admiral Taman had received was indeed a trap. When his fleet arrived at the Zephyrian homeworld, they found no aliens in distress, only Korthak ships waiting in ambush. Admiral, we're detecting over 500 enemy vessels, reported Tactical Officer Hyun-Woo Cho. They're jamming our communications. We can't call for backup. Taman looked at the tactical display. His fleet had only 80 ships, mostly light cruisers and destroyers. The Korthak had learned from their defeat at Velathos Prime and brought overwhelming force. All ships, battle stations, prepare for combat. But as the battle began, something unexpected happened. The Zephyrians were real, and they were fighting alongside several other alien species that had heard about the trap. The Centaurian Trade Federation had sent a battle group. The peaceful monks of the Eternal Watchers had contributed their shield, technology. Even some former Korthak slaves had joined the fight. Admiral, this is Captain Vexthol of the Free Korthak Liberation Front, came a transmission from one of the approaching ships. We were slaves of the Dominion until we heard about your victory at Velathos Prime. We're here to help. The Battle of Zephyria became the second great victory for the growing alliance of species. Human tactics, combined with alien technology and determination, proved too much for War Prince Krovak's forces. After the battle, Admiral Taman found himself commanding not just human ships, but a multi-species fleet that called itself the Galactic Defense Alliance. Representatives from 26 different worlds had volunteered their ships and crews. Admiral, said Captain Thexara, the former Velothi refugee who now commanded her own vessel, we have received another distress call. The mining guild of Kepler 442 is under attack by pirates. Taman smiled. A year ago, he had been a simple patrol captain on the edge of human space. Now he was leading a galactic alliance against forces of oppression throughout known space. Set course for Kepler 442, he ordered. All ships prepare for deployment. Let's go help some more people. On Earth, Chancellor Mira Song was reading reports from across the galaxy. The phrase, "Call the Deathworlders," had become a rallying cry for oppressed species everywhere. But it was no longer just about humans. The alliance they had created was becoming something much larger. "Ma'am," said her aide, bringing her the daily intelligence briefing, "we're getting reports that several Korthak slave worlds are rebelling. They're using human military manuals that were somehow smuggled to them. Mira looked out her window at the sprawling city below. When this all started, humanity's goal had been simply to save one alien species. Now, they were inspiring rebellions across the galaxy. Dr. Yoon-ji Yoon had been studying the broader implications of human intervention in galactic affairs. Her research was yielding fascinating results. The Terran doctrine is being taught in military academies across 12 different species, she reported. The basic principle is that victory comes not from superior numbers or technology, but from the willingness to sacrifice for others who cannot defend themselves. As the months passed, the galaxy continued to change. The Galactic Council officially recognized the Galactic Defense Alliance as a legitimate military force. Trade routes that had been closed due to piracy were reopening. Species that had been isolated for centuries were joining the galactic community, but perhaps the most important change was in how species viewed each other. The old divisions between strong and weak species were breaking down. The Velathi, once considered helpless, were now respected as master strategists. The Centaurians had revealed hidden military capabilities that surprised everyone. Admiral Taemin Park stood on the observation deck of Velathos Defender, looking out at his fleet. Human ships flew alongside Velathi science vessels, Centaurian, battle cruisers, and dozens of other designs. Crews from 26 different worlds worked together as if they had been allies for centuries. "Admiral," said Mordathi, joining him at the viewing port, "I have been thinking about that first message we sent to Earth. We called you warriors from a death world, and we were right. But we did not understand what that really meant." "What do you mean? A death world does not just create warriors. It creates protectors. Species that survive on dangerous planets learn to help each other. That is why you came to save us. Not because you are strong, but because you understand that survival means protecting those who cannot protect themselves." Taemin nodded. In the distance, he could see a small convoy of refugee ships they were escorting to safety. Just another day's work for the Galactic Defense Alliance. His communications officer interrupted his thoughts. "Admiral, we're receiving a distress call from the Outer Rim. The Crystalline Confederacy is under attack by unknown forces." Taemin smiled and walked back to the bridge. The galaxy was vast, full of species that needed protection, and humanity had found its purpose among the stars. "All ships, change course for the Outer Rim. Let's go see who needs our help this time." The legend of the Deathworlders had become something greater than anyone had imagined. It was no longer about one species from a dangerous planet. It was about the idea that strength should be used to protect the weak, that no one should face extinction alone, and that sometimes the most important battles are fought for people you have never met. The galaxy had learned that Deathworlders don't just survive, they make sure.